Hey guys, Rex Overdrive here, and as 2017 comes to a close, I want to give you my top 10 worst films from this year. I saw a lot of great films this year, but man did I also see a lot of shit. And I wasn't able to see every bad movie, but this is my top 10 list for worst movies of 2017. The Great Wall. I even remember when I first saw the trailer for The Great Wall, I was like, what? Matt Damon's in this movie? Like Willem Dafoe and the guy who played Oberyn from Game of Thrones? Like, this movie just felt so weird, and like the writing was bad. Like, there wasn't really even a story. It was like these weird lizard creatures trying to get past the Great Wall so they could like attack the ancient like Chinese Empire. And it's just like the CGI for these creatures was bad. Like Matt Damon and like Willem Dafoe, they didn't even really like it. Didn't even like look like their characters even knew what they were doing in this movie. It was just so bad. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. This was a really bad movie, and having the name of The Final Chapter is just pretty much like the culmination of all the shit that came before. And this movie had some of the worst like jump cut editing I've ever seen in a film. It's just so terrible, and there was no story, and they're like trying to like regurgitate the shitty story from the previous, I don't know how many goddamn Resident Evil films there's been before. But this was a shitty movie all around, through and through. I didn't like, not even any of the action in this film was that great. Like, it was just kind of bad on all levels, and it even like seemed to be trying to rip off elements from like Mad Max, and it's just none of these Resident Evil movies even retain anything remotely scary. So this was just a bad movie on every level. XXX Return of Xander Cage. First of all, who was asking for another XXX movie? And it seems like the only real reason Vin Diesel wanted to like make this movie was so that he could come off as like the coolest dude possible, where he has like girls just like all over him throughout the entire movie. And there's really no story in this film. There's like stuff with like satellites and like things called like Pandora's box in this film. It gets real weird, but the only real reason for any story in this film is so that they can get from like one shitty action scene to the next shitty action scene. It's just a really bad movie. Like, why even bother with making another XXX movie? Like, I thought they were going to be done after that shitty Ice Cube one. Collide. This was probably one of the more surprisingly shitty movies. I mean, this wasn't really on my radar at all, but with who was in it, you had Anthony Hopkins, you had Felicity Jones, who was recently in Rogue One, and Nicholas Hoult, who was in he plays Beast in the X-Men franchise. Those are three really solid actors, and this movie is just so bad. It revolves a lot of like car chase scenes, and Anthony Hopkins, like, he just like took the check and just kind of like snoozed his way through his character's role. And it's just it's bad on every level. Like, you would think that these actors would kind of know how to choose roles better, but it just felt like a super low budget. I don't know, is Nicholas Hoult ready to like be a leading actor? Maybe not. I don't know. We've seen Felicity Jones being a leading actress, and Anthony Hopkins, it seems like he's actually he's in another movie that I'm about to mention a little later on, but he just seems to be taking the checks lately. But this was a terrible movie. I highly recommend staying as far away from Collide as possible. Rings. This was sort of a shitty attempt at like a reboot or a sequel, and I like that first Ring movie. I think that's a really solid horror film, probably one of the better ones that's come out in like the last 15 years or so. But what makes that first one kind of special to me is that it relied on older technology, like VHS tapes. There's something like mysterious about those, where they might not have a label on them. They might have come from your dad's like sock drawer or something like that. But this sequel kind of like relied on modern technology with like smartphones and things like that, and they pretty much just overused that original like creepy Ring video, you know, where like it has that like creepy imagery, and it just kind of like lost the magic that it had. It wasn't scary anymore, and there's this like weird subplot with like the dude from Big Bang Theory like trying to do like, I don't know, whatever he was trying to do, but just the acting and the story in this film, it's just really shitty, and it wasn't scary at all. And I think they need to go back to R rating, or just kind of abandon this franchise by all means. Transformers: The Last Night. It's pretty crazy that this is the 5th film in the Transformers franchise, and I don't know if this is the worst Transformers film. Age of Extinction might have this one beat, but this is a terrible movie, and I was kind of a little bit excited that this might have some like fantasy elements in it, but like they take that stuff and they just like pretty much like turn it into like toilet paper and just wipe their ass with it. Like everything about it is just a joke. Like Stanley Tucci plays Merlin and he's just like a drunken buffoon riding a horse, and just all this like fantasy stuff. It could have been cool, but they just turn it into a joke. And even Mark Wahlberg, like he tries his best to save what he can with this movie, but he can't do it on his own. Anthony Hopkins, another film where he's just kind of like walking in his sleep, kind of just taking a paycheck. But I wanted this movie to be good. The trailers, all the trailers make these movies seem like they could be good, but they just fail every single time. There's a Bumblebee movie coming out next year, I think next year, and I have slight hope for that. Maybe they have some like retro like 80s elements in it. I think it does take place in the 80s, but let's hope that's good. But The Last Night is just so shitty. 47 meters down. It seems like every year we get a shark movie, and with 47 meters down, all I really wanted was to be a little bit scared by some sharks. Like, just do that. But this movie couldn't even do that. The only time that the sharks pop up on screen were like for jump scares. The thing that I'll say was slightly positive about this movie was that when they were like deep down in the ocean, like it was a little bit eerie. I got a little bit claustrophobic. I got a little bit scared. But other than that, like the only real reason those sisters like get in that shark cage is to like so they can take photos to like send to Mandy Moore's like character's boyfriend back home to like try and make him jealous. So there's that all that like shitty storyline going back and forth. And it wasn't even scary with the sharks. Like, that's all they had to do was make a scary shark movie with a somewhat decent story, and they couldn't even do that. Baywatch. Out of all the movies on this list, I wanted this one to be good the most, and I grew up watching Baywatch in the 90s, and I think there was probably some potential for a Baywatch film, but I thought they could have gone more of like an action adventure route, where like this film just goes in like a spoof, like not necessarily trying to be a spoof movie, but that's what it comes off as. Like this to me is like comparable to like Super Troopers or something like that, but that movie's actually funny to me. Just all the comedy and just the story in this film is just so shitty, and like even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson couldn't even save this movie. Underworld Blood Wars. This is another one of those franchises where it's like, why are they making another sequel? And there's really no story for this film. It's like every 15 minutes, these like vampires would like suck on each other's blood to experience the characters' like memories, and the movie would do like a flashback, and the film would just do that so often, and it didn't even have any like tolerable action set pieces in the film. And it was just one of those movies this year that was just completely forgettable. 50 Shades Darker. This is one of those movies that you think like, yeah, it's gonna be a bad movie, but maybe it'll be slightly romantic or even like somewhat sexy, and it's a movie that can't even deliver that. Like the writing in this movie, it was so bad. It's not sexy or romantic in any way. There's really no chemistry between these actors, yet they keep making these shitty sequels. I think another one comes out later this winter sometime, maybe in February, probably around Valentine's Day, because what people want to do the most is see another shitty 50 Shades movie on Valentine's Day. But they even throw in this sequence in the movie where there's like a helicopter crash, and it then cuts to the family like watching it on the news, where they find out that he's been involved in a helicopter crash, and then literally like 3 minutes later he just like walks into the room right after they saw that shit on the news. That's how bad the writing is in this film. It just like everything about this movie, there's like, I don't understand like what draws people to these movies. I'll get it if I haven't read the books. I'll get it if maybe the books are tolerable and like people can get connected to these characters and things like that. But these movies are just so bad in every way. There's like no romance in this movie. The actors have no chemistry. And I just hate these movies, and I just think they're so terrible. Guys, that's it for this video. Now I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your least favorite movies from this year? Leave them down below in the comment section. All applicable links are down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rex Overdrive. I'll see you next time.